Welcome to the future of Israel and the Jewish people. We're here again with my good friend and speaker for today's second part of Making Aliyah with Adrianne. Adrianne, welcome back.
Thank you, Frank.
What are we going to do today? We're going to talk about from step one, if you got an idea of wanting to become an Israeli, I guess, citizen, right?
You to return if you have a desire in your heart to be in Israel, to move to Israel, to return to Israel, you really have to start thinking about this whole process about 6 months to a year before the actual move actually happens. And it's a process. Aliyah is a long process, and you have to contact a Jewish agency. You can call us directly at Operation Exodus USA, and we, on our website for Aliyah, we have you step by step what step 1 is, step 2 is, step 3 is, and the Jewish agency has to qualify you as a candidate to return to Israel, and they will give you a visa at the end of the process, and you will become a citizen of Israel. And so we come in most of the time. People can call us directly, Jewish people that are going through the Aliyah process. It's word of mouth. They may have family friends that have already returned to Israel, and we assisted them, so they tell them about Operation Exodus. Or the Jewish agency, we work in conjunction in partnership with the Jewish agency, and they refer those people that need that little extra help as they're going through the Aliyah process. The Israeli government pays for their flight from JFK to Israel, but let's say they're living in Florida or Wisconsin, wherever they're making Aliyah from, there's that internal flight that we assist with, or shipping costs. They have to ship their belongings to Israel, very costly, so we assist with that as well.
Well, you said it takes about 6 months?
6 months, at least 6 months, because it's quite a process. You have to go through the Aliyah process with the Jewish agency.
I don't really think that's a long time. The reason why I say that, those of us that are in business, and I'm in real estate, obviously, it could take us that long to sell a building, no longer.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm talking about from the time we have a buyer.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, 6 months goes by very fast. I
Yes.
mean, you think about one time we're at Passover, and the next thing you know, we're at Yom Kippur. Okay? So,
Yes.
time goes quick.
Yes. And every year the Jewish people say, next year in Jerusalem. So it's in their heart. And if it's, maybe they already have family and friends that are living in Israel, and that tug is there to return, there's assistance that we can assist with.
So the main focus of contacting the Jewish agency
Yes.
is they want to make sure that if you're going to do this and eventually become a citizen, you got Jewish blood in you.
You qualify, yes.
Okay. Do you have to be 100% Jewish?
I don't know what, you have to be Jewish.
Okay.
If your mother is Jewish, you're Jewish.
Oh, is that the way it works? Not your father?
Well, either way, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you are right. Because they know who the mother is all the time.
Yes.
And that's interesting. So I was surprised that you're dealing with their belongings, and you're talking about even their appliances going.
Yes.
Wow.
It's to purchase appliances in Israel, apparently it's quite costly, very expensive. So it's cheaper for them to ship their goods from here, their appliances, from the U.S. to Israel, and we assist with the costs of the shipping.
And there's just this
containers.
Very inexpensive attachment you plug into the wall that 110 power can be run off 240, and
it's done because they ship the appliances from here all the time.
I couldn't find my charger the last time I was there for my cell phone, and you can't live without a cell phone, right? It's your computer now. And the guy at Radio Shack, of all places, said to me, well, you don't need it, really. I said, why not? He said, well, every television has a port in the back. And if you take your plug off and plug the cable into the television and leave the television on, it charges your cell phone every night while you're watching TV.
Wow.
And so on the return trip home, I found my charger. But let's go back to the agency's just concerned about whether or not you're Jewish. And then they say, well, if you need assistance, don't let that prevent it. Go see Operation Exodus USA. You help them. Now, where are your offices?
Our main office, our home office, is in Lancaster, New York. And we have a hub office that we just opened at the beginning of this year in Brooklyn, New York. And we also have a hub office in Alaska.
Wow. Why
Yes.
Alaska?
Well, there's that proximity to Russia.
Whoa, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And the majority of the people that you worked with at the beginning was from Russia to Ukraine.
At the beginning of the Aliyah ministry work that we did was from the FSU, Ukraine, yes.
By the way, if you want to hear more about the biblical connection between this from the scriptures, if you look at our website, thefutureofisrael.org, you would then be able to look at the previous show, Aliyah, and understand why it's biblically based. But we're not going to get into that today. We're going to talk about the way to do it. So now the agency says, okay, Frank, your mother was Jewish, you can go, okay?
You can go way back in your family tree. If there's any Jewish blood, you're Jewish.
Okay.
You just have to be able to prove it.
Okay. And it really is amazing, you know, how these different information banks are available to you now. I mean, you know, whether it's checking your ancestry, your family tree, and whatever. I mean, when you go into a place like Russia and people hid their papers, destroyed their papers.
Exactly, and that was where the volunteers, our team of volunteers back in 1990s and through 2000, that was the major part of the work, was helping them, assisting them to go to the consulate to provide the right papers and process the papers. It's very difficult sometimes in those type of countries to prove.
I don't think this was your organization, but I know when I was over Israel, I believe I heard it. And there was a group of people who wanted to migrate to Israel, and they were from like India. And
There was the, yes, we've assisted a lost tribe from India to return
so it was.
to Israel, yes.
So here, you go there, they don't have papers, supposedly, but they're doing everything that's Jewish, right?
They kept the customs, the traditions, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they knew. Then there was another group that did everything, I think, except, I think that group did everything except Hanukkah. And then they traced it back that, well, they left, say, Persia or wherever they were, and went further east before Hanukkah took place, which happened during the Greek era. Okay? So, I mean, you know, for those of you watching the show that is not Jewish, and even if you're Jewish and you're not familiar with your history, okay, what's really amazing is that this religious side has kept very careful records of when this king was in, when that king was in, and everything else. And they kept records. And in spite of the fact that there's been such persecution, a lot of the information still comes to the surface.
That's right.
So it's really good. Really good.
Yes, God was serious when he said not one will be left behind. So even the lost tribes, they could be at the farthest corner of the earth, and the Lord finds them and he brings them back. He made a covenant with his people.
Yes, he did.
To 1,000 generations.
Let's talk about now, I've got my visa. Yeah, I've got my ticket from Florida to New York. Maybe you're helping me ship my appliances or whatever. I've got a family. Maybe I'm a professional here. Talking from America's standpoint, we'll talk about that rather than being a peasant, okay, in a place like Russia or Ukraine or Siberia. I get off the plane. Okay, what happens next?
One of the biggest obstacles is language. and when the Olim are leaving from here, from this country, they have an advantage where they can say, we would like you to assist, to help us with Hebrew lessons. And there's a school, Ulpan, ULPAN, in New York, that we pay for the fee for them to go and have Hebrew lessons. So the better the language, the better you'll find a better job, you'll find a good job. The biggest obstacle is the language barrier, because if you're a doctor here, or a nurse, or you're a lawyer, whatever you're doing here, you may not be able to do it there because of that language if you don't have the Hebrew.
Well, let's just go back to somebody going to make their bar mitzvah, okay? And now we know even girls make, I'm trying to think of what the word is for a woman to make bar mitzvah, but leave that aside. Isn't that enough to know how to speak Hebrew?
No, they just recite it.
Yeah, they
It's
don't understand
memorized.
it, and they don't know what they're saying.
Some do. I mean,
Yeah.
some families, they bring up their children speaking Hebrew, and they go to school where they speak Hebrew, but not all.
Yeah, so that would be more the Orthodox, the Hasidic Jewish people. And many of those making Aliyah?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's because they understand the scriptures. Yeah, they read their scriptures. And
But all types of Jewish people are returning.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We know that the better you know your home language, the easier it is to teach another language. Because when we were in Hebrew school with Rabbi John, the people who knew pronunciation, knew grammar, knew a lot of things, caught on to it much better. Those of us that learned how to read by recognition rather than phonics and all that other stuff struggle. But you can do it with the computer. There's a school that is strictly on the computer. You can buy a program and they'll read it to you, pronounce it, they'll put it on the screen, but it's probably not enough to earn a living with.
Well, once they get to Israel, the government steps in, and they do. They call it basket of absorption. They have many, many things that they assist the new Olim with Ulpan school to learn English. Hebrew. They pay. There's quite a few benefits that for that first 6 to 1 year that they're in the land, the government steps in and you do quite a bit to assist and help them to absorb into the land.
Who do you have on the ground in
We
Israel?
have an office in Jerusalem that is there. Again, when we give our gift to the Olim that's leaving from here, from New York, or we give them all the details that they will need, step by step, once they get into Israel. Contact our Jerusalem office, and how to contact different agencies in Jerusalem, in Israel. And they need assistance. They need quite a bit of assistance once they get to the land. The government is there, yes. If they have family, that's great. But our office is there to assist in any way that we can. We can assist by helping pay for some kind of a bill that they don't have the funds to pay. We bring food parcels to them. We bring blankets. We bring whatever it is that they need. We assist. We are there to comfort them and to help them in any way that we can.
Now, on our earlier show, we went into a lot of detail about the fact that these are Gentiles, they're Christians, they're not doing anything more than getting them to the land and making them prosper. That's their only goal. They're nonprofit. All their funds are coming from fellow Christians, mostly, that believe in the program.
That's right.
Okay, so that's step number one that we want to cover here. Let's go and say, now, I land tonight in Tel Aviv. I get through customs. I've got my belongings that I carried on the plane. I've got my 3-year-old, like my wife's over here with a baby. And where do I go to sleep that night?
They will have, you have to have an apartment. I mean, you have to have somewhere to go to. And there's absorption centers where you can stay until you get yourself acclimated and get an apartment on your own and so forth.
Does anybody go to a kibbutz?
Yes. It's a form of a kibbutz, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they have to have a place to stay. They can't just go without an apartment.
Now let me just point out one thing about kibbutzes today, you know. I mean, you might have seen movies, you might have seen clips, you might have read articles about kibbutzes in 1948. In fact, the Lebanese border is created where it is because there was a kibbutz there, and they made the border north of the kibbutz to include it into the state of Israel. But regardless of which kibbutz you go to, they're not like you think they are, like years ago. You know, you're not going to see barbed wire fences and machine guns up.
Oh, no.
And any of that stuff. We stayed at a hotel that was as good as any hotel we needed to stay at. They're raising, you know, hundreds of head of cattle and chickens, and they might have 75 calves a day being born. I mean, all the food you're eating practically is coming from the backyard. Transportation is readily available. Cars. Years ago, kibbutzes was run on more or less like a social kind of thing. Everything belonged to everybody. Everybody shared alike. Now that you can even have a parcel of land that you and your family farm independently, you can live in a house rather than at the quarters that are provided. So it's a completely different thing, but it's still agricultural in nature. And agricultural is a big thing there. I mean, if you know anything about agricultural, but there's other technologies that are tremendous there. The electronics, I mean, our cell phones, our defense systems. They take our American fighters and they improve them so that they fly better than the American fighters because they have a shorter takeoff place. They be over Jordan in 3 minutes if they weren't able to maneuver out of the Jordan fly zone and turn around and fly over the Mediterranean. They have the latest technologies there. They're going to be the biggest pharmaceutical. They're on the verge of solving the problem with AIDS. I mean, they're working on cancer. I mean, so there's no gift that you have that they can't use. I mean, they're building tunnel from Egypt, the Red Sea, over to Jordan to supply them with water, okay? And in the process, they're desalinating water. They're taking some of the water from the Red Sea and putting it into the Dead Sea so that the Dead Sea doesn't dry up, because there's so much chemicals that Jordan and Israel are getting out of there that's worth millions of dollars. So you're not going into a third world country. Their economy is like probably third in the world.
Yes.
Okay, their defense system is probably up in the top 5, and so you're not. I mean, everything there looks so American. I mean, your signs on the street are in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. So I was there on both occasions and never had a problem communicating with anybody. And so, in fact, I was standing at a bus stop. This is really interesting. And I was looking at a building, because, again, I said I'm in real estate, right? And somebody asked me about the building. And little boy comes up and pulls me on my shirt, and he's trying to sell me some stuff. And what it is the thing that Orthodox Jews wear around their wrist and, and, you know, things like this. And I said to him, well, I'm not Jewish, okay? And I don't try to imitate that. I'll wear a yarmulke if I have to in a service, but I'm not trying to make believe I'm a Jew. And not that I wouldn't mind, but I mean, it's deceitful when you do that. And so I said to the little boy that was with him, about 5 years older, I said, did you make Aliyah from America? He said, no, from Australia. And he spoke perfect English, obviously.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
And so we talked, you know, I said to him a couple of things. And he was very religious. And it was very much of a pleasure to talk to him. But here was a young boy, moved there with his family, and his younger friend or brother was trying to sell things at the bus stop that he thought the average Jewish person would. And he probably looked at me and knew I wasn't from Israel. But, you know, I always wear a hat, and I look very Jewish in many cases when I wear my black hat. And so it was a great time. But what else would you like to cover? We have about 10 minutes.
Well, we Operation Exodus, we just consider it such a privilege to partner with God Himself, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in the return of His people back to Israel. He made a covenant with His people for 1,000 generations, and He promised that He would not one shall be left behind. So if you have a desire to return to Israel, it's God Himself that is calling you back to the land. The old prophets all prophesied the return. Yes, God dispersed them throughout the diaspora, throughout the nations of the world, but there's that promise, that regathering, that return to Aliyah, sent to Zion, to return to the land of covenant. And our mandate is just to encourage and assist the Jewish people through the process of Aliyah. And the numbers from here, from the U.S., from 2004 to 2014, we assisted 1,000 from the U.S. From 2014 through now, over 1,000. So in 2 years, it's doubled, more than doubled. So last year, 2015, Aliyah from the nations was 35% increase. So His people are returning. They're returning home in fulfillment of His prophecy, His promise.
Well, we don't have to explain how anti-Semitism has grown.
Tremendously.
Okay, especially in places like France.
Yeah, we opened an office there in this year, beginning of this year. We also opened an office in Paris.
Paris. But even our colleges today, okay, are under, Jewish students are under a lot of pressure.
Tremendous.
Okay, and everybody that don't understand what's going on is sort of anti-Semitic. And it doesn't matter whether they're religious people, whether they're political people, whether they're from the enemy, whatever it is, anti-Semitism is on the rise.
Worldwide, yes.
Worldwide. But, you know, you're in a country that's comparably safe, okay? Right now, we're probably dealing with more racial things than we're dealing with anti-Semitic, but they're both hate, in essence. So why do I bring this up? Well, you might think, well, going to Israel is a dangerous place. Well, they've been back in the land 70 years, right? And they haven't lost a war, okay? The only reason why you wouldn't say they had tremendous victories, which they did, but, you know, they didn't really conquer land that they kept. They just used their defense to defend their own country, which is probably better than what we're doing. And number two from that is that they would have accomplished more when they were attacked if the forces of world politics and the UN didn't get in the way. And so they tried to appease both groups.
Yes.
Okay? So why do I bring this up? Well, we lose sometimes more people in the state of Illinois or Washington, D.C. in the course of a year than they do in a year in Israel. Now, that's hard to believe for some years, but it's true. And, you know, if you study world prophecy, okay, they're never going to lose a war.
That's right.
Okay? So that's what the Bible says, that once they come back, you'll never put them out. And the enemy, I would say, from Isaac's time on, has been anti-Semitic. I mean, when Isaac came back in the land, they started to fill in his father's wells, okay? And we can go on to the Greek era, we can go on to the Roman era, we can go on to the Turkish era, we can go on to the Arab era, we can go on to the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition. You go on and on and on and on and on. But, you know, they're always coming out on top.
That's right.
Why? Because God is with them.
God is with them.
Yeah, and if God is with us, who can be against us?
Amen.
And so read some of your Jewish history, not from a history book, from the first book of the Bible. Just turn to Genesis and read the victorious.
Yes.
And you don't have to be perfect either. But that's the great part. I mean, you look at Samson with the Philistines. I mean, he was anything but perfect. And, you know, he disobeyed God. Yeah. He didn't listen to his parents. He committed some awful sin. But in the end, he still was victorious. Okay? So that's the story.
God
What else do?
is an amazing God.
Yep.
And he made a covenant with the people in the land of Israel. And it is amazing. We do have some families that share with us that because of the anti-Semitism and the signs of the times, they're just being prudent and they're making Aliyah. And many are realizing now is the time to make Aliyah. And from this country, we are expecting the greatest Aliyah. The second Exodus will be from the United States because we have over 6 million Jewish people here. And the Lord says, you will not be speaking of the first one, you'll be speaking of the second Exodus.
And you know what? Nazi Germany killed 6 million Jews, and now there's more than 6 million Jews in Israel. Why don't you tell them about your contact information before we end the show?
Our organization is Operation Exodus USA, and our main office is in Lancaster, New York. Our number, if you'd like to contact us directly, is 716-681-6300. And to find out about Aliyah step by step, AliyahUSA.com.
Listen, for nothing else than to be well educated, go to that website. Okay? You can learn a lot. If you want to see our previous show, which really talked about the Bible basis for this, go to thefutureofisrael.org and you'll find it under Aliyah. This is Aliyah 2, this show. So, that has been an interesting story. Give us one testimony before we close from somebody that went there and so pleased and wrote you back a letter.
Oh, there's so many, but there's one man, elderly man, that lives in New York City, and we just visited him at his apartment. He was planning to move to Florida, was buying property there. No intention of making Aliyah. His son was in Israel, living in Israel and working in Israel. And he was making all the final plans to move to Florida. And he said he heard a voice, Israel, make Aliyah to Israel.
Wow.
And he had absolutely no intention. And he really was very not too decided about it. Like, he really didn't want to make the trip by himself. His son calls him from Israel out of the blue, and he said, Dad, I'm going to come and get you. My boss has asked me to be in New York City at such and such a time, and we're coming back in such and such a date, the same exact day that he was getting on the plane. So God even made that wonderful miracle that his son, you made the provision for his son to come and pick him up and bring him home.
Okay, gang, what can I say? Listen for God's voice. I mean, he speaks to all of us. Thank you and shalom. Be at peace. Don't let anything be of fear. Peace is beyond all understanding. That's what you'll find in Israel. Peace. Shalom.